Hello, and welcome back for part 3 of our 3-part series on building resilient communities. In part 1, we talked about the effects of toxic stress. And in part 2, we talked about building your own resilience as an individual through your self-care. And in this part, we're going to talk about how we can focus on positive experiences for healthy outcomes. So I work with Virginia Home for Boys and Girls. My name is Cory Richardson Lauve, and I've been working with kids and communities for over 25 years. So glad to share this training with you. We'll start with a review of kind of our big picture for our 3-part series. First is knowing that toxic stress is a systemic problem. So understanding that these different systems all work together to support the success of the individual child. And that includes the family and kinship and extended family and informal networks, the local environment, formal networks and services, and then the broader economic, policy, social, and wider environment. So a lot of times it can be frustrating when we see that these systems are not working as we'd like them to for kids in particular and families. So we want to use that anger and that passion and that frustration as fuel so that we can make a difference, whatever place we are in these different systems. So to do that, we want to practice self-care, as we talked about in the second video. And this video is going to help us focus on learning what helps make things better, looking at the research and what we can do as individuals to make things better. Through that, we want to hold on to hope and then again, focus on improving things wherever you already are within these systems. So we know that resilient communities are made of resilient individuals. Resilient individuals and communities are healthy and they're strong. They bounce back from difficult experiences. They can work with others to find creative solutions. And they contribute to the community and to the lives of other people as they improve structures and systems that contribute to stress and trauma. So think of resilient individuals that you know. They may have stories of their own hardship or abuse, neglect in their backgrounds, different things that may have happened to them, even generational mistreatment. And even through that, they have flourished. They have bounced back, not just to live good lives, but fruitful lives, and have really given back to the community, inspired others, strengthened others through their energy and contributions. And that might be in their small community, through their social group or their church or their extended family, or it could be through writing books or presenting in workshops or in the community in different ways. And so we just see these folks who have come alive in spite of what has happened to them, or maybe because of what has happened to them has made them stronger. So that's what we're talking about when we think about resilient communities. So some helpful ways to think about resilience when we're talking with folks, working with folks, especially with kids, it can be, instead of thinking what they're doing is an intentional disrespect or misbehavior, it's more helpful to think this is a lack of a skill. This is something they can learn to be more successful in different settings, whether it be school or family dynamics or in relationships and so on. So instead of shaming for lack of skills, we want to think, how do we build the missing skills? What can we do to help teach those skills? Instead of thinking that criticism will help, we want to think about nurturance and how nurturing them can help building relationships. Instead of blaming the person, we want to, again, have that system approach and think about teaching skills. And instead of thinking punishment will help, think about how positive experiences will help. So these mindsets are really important as a parent, as a mentor, as a teacher, but also with our own self-talk when we're frustrated with us not having the capacity to do something at a particular time in our life, to think about what skill is going to help me here. What do I need to learn, and practice self-care in that way. So we know some new research that lets us know that even if people have toxic stress or trauma in their lives, they can thrive if there are positive experiences as well. So the positive experiences offset the effects of adverse childhood experiences and toxic stress. And you can learn more about that at this website, positiveexperience.org. So this is really important research, and it changes us from, instead of trying to fix the adverse childhood experiences, which again are a deeply systemic problem, we can look at what can we add instead to create more health and more resilience. So what are those positive experiences we can add? So we can organize these positive experiences in 4 ways. So that we know where to start. And again, thinking of their systems, we have to know where we are in the system so we know where to begin. So we'll keep that in mind as we talk through this. This might be a point when you'd like to take notes, considering your role, thinking about where you are in the system and the work that you're committed to. You could jot down ideas as we talk through these upcoming slides about ways that you can put into practice right away what research is showing us can help with these positive experiences that build resilient communities. So there's 4 parts. First is building and nurturing relationships. The second is creating safe and stable environments. The third is helping individuals connect to their communities. And the 4th is teaching social and emotional skills. So we're going to dig into each of these a little bit. So the first part here is building and nurturing relationships. So think about the most important relationships in your lives. Maybe they've been lifelong relationships. Maybe they're new in the past year or 2 weeks, but they all have just this warmth and this connection as a part of it. And the research shows that having relationships makes a huge difference in people's lives. So here are some ways to build. Having fun together. Laughing together, playing together, that's huge. Think of things like playing card games like Uno or Rummy or things like that. Also playing things like kicking a ball back and forth or bouncing a basketball. You don't have to be a basketball player to get your hands on a ball and bounce it back and forth with a kid or even a teenager. Just doing something like that helps build your relationship through that engaged experience. Certainly praise and encouragement builds relationship, noticing what someone is doing in their life and lifting them up, talking about what you see, helping them be seen. Shared experiences, maybe even a project like picking up trash together or coloring together or making sandwiches for other family members together. Just doing something side by side can help connect and build a relationship. Rituals, different activities that you do, music for sure, dancing, things like that, shared handshakes, things that connect and help people feel like they're not alone. And then encouraging relationships with others. So let's say you're a mentor working one-on-one, so you're building a relationship with a young person, but then also encouraging their relationships with other people their age or other adults in the community. The bottom line is nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So connecting is the first thing we need to do in order to make a difference. The second piece here in terms of creating positive experiences has to do with creating safe and stable environments. So here we're talking about food and shelter and healthcare, a nurturing home, a stable school environment, and a community environment for play and safe interactions with others. So this is really important to keep in mind because maybe your role is not direct relationships with folks. Maybe it's maintenance or cleaning, but it really matters. At a school, if you're a teacher, the environment that you're creating in the classroom, just the physical space is important as well as the relationships you're building. So this is the second part of creating positive experiences, these safe and stable environments. The third part is helping individuals connect to their communities. So thinking about what activities are happening that will help them connect, just not just in this one-on-one relationships with others, but in the feeling of a group, feeling a part of a community. So these might be cultural traditions, they might be organized activities like music or art or sports, mentoring programs, certainly, especially if they have the chance to mentor other people. Community service can give that feeling, and of course, spiritual groups as well. And then the fourth piece, the last piece, is about teaching social and emotional skills. So those other pieces that we talked about, especially the parts about building relationships and being part of a community, require individuals to be able to manage their own stress. And that's, a lot of what we talked about in self-care in the second video. So when we can teach kids and adults social and emotional skills that help them deal with the effects of stress, teaching them how to identify and deal with anger, fear, or grief, just normal human emotions that we all experience, and teaching them how to disagree with others and resolve conflict, then they're going to be more successful in those other areas of building relationships and engaging with the community. So remember, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And so it's all connected, it's all tied together. And a lot of times this word teach gets to people and they don't feel like natural teachers, or that's a word that just doesn't resonate with them. And so sometimes it can help to think of yourself as a coach or a mentor instead of a teacher, just somebody showing the way. So as we're teaching folks or coaching folks about their social skills and emotional skills, it's important for them to understand the effects of stress. So that brings us back to this. When we talk about stress, there's a healthy amount of stress in our lives, and we can talk about what those are in our own lives. Maybe it's stress at work or stress at school or stress in our family relationships. Some healthy amounts that make us better people and help us grow, and then versus unhealthy amounts that can cause us to break down. So here is a video that talks a little bit about social emotional learning and the different components of it.
All right, let's talk about it. What exactly is social emotional learning? What's all the hype about SEL, and why should you care? Social emotional learning, or SEL for short, teaches you how to identify and understand the ways you might think and feel. SEL is a way for students to develop skills that lead to better mental health, better grades, and better success in life. SEL teaches you how to increase positive energy and subtract negative energy. SEL helps you develop the skills you need to live your best life. SEL includes 5 core skills: self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, and relationship skills. Self-awareness is the ability to identify and understand your own emotions. Social awareness is understanding the emotions of others. It also involves empathy, which is the ability to take the perspective of others. Self-management is the ability to manage your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. It includes being able to manage stress and your time effectively. Responsible decision-making is simply the ability to make good choices. This includes avoiding peer pressure and thinking of consequences before you make a decision. And finally, relationship skills, which is the ability to keep and maintain healthy relationships. This includes choosing the right friends, being a good friend, and even resolving conflict that might come up. Here are some benefits of SEL. It leads to better academic achievement and a better understanding of who you are. You learn how to handle relationships and friendships. And let's be honest, you'll probably make more money and get a better job if you have good SEL skills. So, what does social emotional learning mean to you? Subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media, and visit our website to learn more about SEL.
Okay, so really what we're doing is helping folks understand what happens in the brain with our emotions. Emotions are part of life. They protect us. They are deep in being human. And so you might remember this hand model of the brain from the self-care video. But this helps us remember that big emotions like anger, fear, and anxiety can have an effect on your brain. And so they are represented here by the thumb. And when big emotions happen, the thinking part of the brain, these fingers called the wise leader, they flip and we stop thinking. So the better we can recognize and manage our emotions, the more stable we'll be and the more we'll be able to navigate difficult emotional situations, which are part of life. So this is a big thing we want to teach kids. It's becoming more common in schools to teach social emotional learning. And when we can do that through our relationships in the community, we can strengthen kids' ability to handle these difficult emotions. So bringing us back to our pair of ACEs, which are adverse childhood experiences and adverse community environments, is just a reminder that there are stressors in kids' lives that are unique to them, which might be some of these things. But there's also these systemic stressors in all our lives in different ways. So teaching these skills can help them with their own self-awareness and their own self-care too. So let's talk about some ways to teach how to deal with stress, or again, you might be more comfortable with coach or mentor, how you help younger people deal with stress. So the first way is to help with build a feelings vocabulary, if you will, teach words that describe feelings and talk about what those feelings are. So describe the sensations that arise. I know when I feel anger, it usually starts in my belly and then really explodes in my heart. And it makes me feel hot all over when I'm feeling angry. When I'm feeling grief, I might feel it in my face and it eventually emerges as tears, that sadness or that grief. But when we can explain that to younger folks, we can help them build a feelings vocabulary and understand what's happening in their body, because feelings are literally feelings. They come through our body and then we have to process them with our brains. So telling these stories, which links to the role modeling, and then making observations too. If you're playing a game with a kid and they get upset, you can say, wow, it seems like you might feel angry right now. What is that like for you? What are you feeling in your body? What's going on? And being there with them and understanding if they're yelling, that's a way that they're letting off steam that's building up inside of them. So just reflecting and making those observations. And here is a blow up of those feeling words, because you can really modify them based on what age group you're working with and what kind of vocabulary somebody has. So with my 14-year-old, we talk about sad, mad, glad, and bad. And we keep it really simple. But as he gets older, we can really dig into some of these more sophisticated words. So once we are recognizing feelings and feeling them in our body, then we can teach techniques for how to calm the body. And we see a lot of these naturally. You probably know people who fidget a lot, who bounce their leg. This is a body's way of blowing off steam from these strong emotions. So when we can teach people how to do this, then it becomes more proactive and there's less of a blow up that needs to happen. So fidgets would be different things people can hold in their hands and fidget with. Standing, pacing, that burns off some steam. Chair bands are these bands that are put around the loops of chairs, and then kids can stretch them with their legs, or adults can stretch them with their legs and kind of use their big muscles to help burn off some of that steam. Mandalas are like coloring circles that you can search for online, but that might be soothing for someone to color and let some energy off through their arm. Gum and chewing, of course. Bouncing, any sort of big bouncing movements, bouncing balls can help. Exercise of all sorts, Play-Doh or clay, like squeezing it and holding it, coloring sheets similar to mandalas, and then rhythm, any sort of dancing or movement, maybe listening to music and walking, or listening to music and running at the same time, can really help calm the body. So then once we've taught that part or coached through that part, we can make plans and help young people think about stressful situations. What are things that trigger them? What are the things that upset them? And then identify the feelings that might happen in the midst of those things and make plans for dealing with those feelings, and then practice some scenarios around that. So this is an example of feelings toolboxes. So this is the idea that you help somebody identify a feeling they experience, maybe excitement, and they kind of get hyper and overstimulated and maybe disruptive. So what are some ways that they can deal with that excitement, and have a little toolbox with objects that they can fidget with or manipulate. Maybe they have bubbles they can blow that'll slow down their breathing, exercise, of course, butterfly hugs. For anger, maybe pushing against the doorway helps release some of the feelings from those muscles, a stress ball or clay. For sadness, maybe there's a comfort object, something soft or familiar, a soothing sensory object, and drawing materials are ways to process those. Worry could be paper to write down the list of worries, or maybe some distractions to, because the brain can overthink things. So what are some ways we can distract ourselves from our worries? And an index card with a stop sign on it. Sometimes people use a rubber band that they snap on their wrist to help say, well, stop that worrying, it's okay. And fear, another common emotion, picture of a safe place, picture of a strong person, a loving and protective person. A transitional object would sort of be like one of those comfort objects, or some magic safety kind of thing that would help remove their fears. So again, it's thinking through, big feelings are going to come. How do we manage them when they do? And this is an important thing that we teach kids. So our summary of ways to create positive experiences, just wrapping up what we talked about in this video. First are those relationships, building and nurturing relationships. Second, creating safe, stable environments. Third, helping individuals connect to their communities. And fourth, teaching social emotional skills, which I kind of think of as a circle surrounding the other three components here. And so finally, to review what we talked about and wrap up all together. First is knowing that toxic stress is a systemic problem. Again, all these systems interact and cause stress in the lives of families and the lives of a child. So it's systemic. We can't point our finger at one person and say it's your fault. We really have to look at how can we influence every part of the system to make things better. So use the feelings as fuel, that passion, that anger, to make a change wherever you are in the system. So learning what helps make things better, like we just shared with those positive experiences and the research surrounding that. Don't forget your self-care, hugely important for sustainability, being able to do this work for years and years, decades. Hold on to hope and do the work wherever you are. So thank you for joining us for these. We hope they are helpful to you. Please reach out to us via the information with this video if you have any questions or want to continue the conversation. Thank you.